Hey, what's up everybody? This is Damron with Trash Ass Gamers, and we're bringing you an Elder Scrolls Online Veteran Dungeon Guide. This is for Frostvault, part of the Wrathstone DLC that just came out March 12th. So if you haven't seen any of these guides before, we will keep these as complete dungeon playthroughs. We'll fast forward through the ad portions of the dungeons so we can speed up the video a little bit, and we'll mainly focus on boss mechanics. We'll also add a little bit of touch of lore in there sprinkled in to talk about the lore of the dungeon, which is connected to the depths of Malatar. So it's pretty cool in the DLC that these two dungeons are connected lore-wise. As a DLC dungeon, this one's not too bad, honestly. It's not too long either. It's pretty short, but DLC dungeons typically have a lot more mechanics than the base game dungeons. But these two dungeons, especially this one, really aren't too bad just on veteran difficulty. We'll certainly be doing the hard mode and getting that guide up as soon as possible. Also, a big thanks to everyone who supported us thus far. We're a pretty new channel, so please like and subscribe if you like our content so we can continue to grow and bring you even more content as we grow together. So with that said, let's go ahead and blast through the first set of ads and we'll meet you at the first boss, which is right here, Icestalker, who's essentially a troll boss. This boss is really easy actually. There's not much mechanics or much you really even need to know about this boss. The only thing you need to know is you want the tank to face the boss away from the rest of the players, because basically he does a stomp attack, and that stomp attack will kind of have a conical damage that goes forward right there as you're seeing, and that can cause a lot of damage if you're anybody else other than the tank, but the tank can really easily sustain that. And the only other attack that you really need to be aware of is when he uppercuts someone in the air like that, and then he has to be interrupted. If you don't interrupt him, the player that he uppercutted up into the air, he will just kind of smash down on their face and pretty much kill that player. I think I actually die at the end of that fight from that attack. So really, honestly, that's the only mechanics that you really need to know. There's going to be a lot of ads that come in during the fight, but you don't need to focus too much on them, although they can be very, very annoying because they will, smash you and they will knock you down. You can block their attacks to avoid getting knocked down, but the ice race, they'll just charge you and hit you really quick, and it's hard to kind of pay attention to all those ads. So it can be annoying kind of getting knocked down, but honestly, don't worry about them. Just let your AoEs take care of them and finish off the boss. So here I got uppercutted, and you see someone interrupted to save me there. So that's really, honestly, the only thing that you really need to focus on. Other than that, just DPS him down, and let's get moving on. Keeping it trashy, there you go. So that's what happens if he's not interrupted. You're gonna die. So we got to keep it trashy for you guys. It's the way we do things. But we'll get through this. We get up, finish this boss off. Alright, so as we're making our way to the next boss, let's talk a little bit about the lore of this dungeon. It's kind of connected to the Depths of Malatar, which is the first dungeon in the Wrathstone DLC. And after assisting Tharaya in the Depths of Malatar and finding the first half of the Wrathstone, she contacts us again and leads us to the location of where she believes the second half is, which is here. And she tells us that she's been hired by a man to explore this ancient and frozen over Dwemer ruin, which we now know as Frostvault. We know that the man is of Imperial descent and paid Tharaya to hire a crew to delve into these ruins. Tharaya tells us that her study of the first half of the Wrathstone led her to believe the second half lies here, and she also tells us that she believes the Dwemer of the Frostvault and the Aelids, similar to the one of Malatar, once fought over the two halves in an attempt to gain them both and harness the Wrathstone power. While exploring the dungeon, we find the outer portions of the ruins overrun by goblin presences, and notice the main door leading deeper into the ruin is wielded shut, seemingly from the inside. You'll see that. And once we get to that door, we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the lore. But in the meantime, let's gang up on the next boss, Tzogvin. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but that's the next boss that we need to tackle in this dungeon, who isn't too bad. You just kind of need to understand the AoEs that he's doing and what you need to avoid being damaged by them. He also does a wrecking blow attack that the tank certainly needs to handle. If that hits any other player, that's certainly going to be likely deadly to you. So one of the things that can happen is a tether between two players, so be aware of that. If you are tethered and you have your subtitles on, it'll tell you that you're tethered. Just make sure you and the tethered players separate from each other to avoid taking damage from that. Other than that, his little spinny attack that he does and his heavy attack are easily aggroed and controlled by the tank. They're not going to hit you too hard. Just make sure the wrecking ball attack stays away from the other players. And eventually what he's going to do is he's going to summon his fire sword, which you see there, and he's going to go up into the air. And basically what that's going to do is that's going to start his fire attacks. And you want to kind of soft stack here, aka spread out, because you're each going to have these circles and you're going to be taking flame damage. And if you're overlapping circles, you're going to be increasing that damage that you're taking. And what you need to do is you need to take his shield down. Once you take his shield down, then this attack will stop. So while you're, being attacked by that flame, have your DPS hitting him and the healer healing everybody just to kind of, heal your way through those attacks, while you can diminish his shield so you can end that phase per se. Also, it's good if your tank is just kind of pulling in all these ads that are spawning, archers and other ads, so you can let your AoEs take care of them. You really don't want to have to focus your main, spammable attacks on the ads if you don't have to. Just let your AoEs take care of them as they come in. Now, another attack that he's going to do, so here's the flame attack again. So we're going to kind of handle this one a little bit faster. But eventually what you're going to see is the next kind of phase is the ice attack, okay? And when he summons this ice, as you can see here, he summons this ice axe. Now the attacks are different. You have these large AoE kind of tornado-like things, and you see the little circle that I have below me. That lets me know that those little tornadoes are targeting me, and I can kind of kite them around and hopefully kind of keep them away from my other players. I got kind of stuck in a sticky situation there. But in this phase, he'll also generate a very large AoE around him that will almost cover the entire board. And everybody really needs to get out of that because that's going to cause a lot of damage basically to everybody. And those are the only really attacks that you need to do. It's kind of just a big AoE fight, right? Just staying out of the AoEs and knowing exactly what's coming. Again, it's not too difficult if you kind of understand what it is that's happening and what it is that's going to kill you. All right, so we're rolling up on the third boss, who's shortly after the second boss, the Vault Protector, and this boss can be a little bit of tricky. There's a few mechanics that you need to know, and you really have to pay attention because there's a lot going on in this fight that can kill you pretty quickly. And the first thing I'm showing you around the room, you're seeing these red lights, and the lasers are basically going to be coming from those lights. And throughout the fight, what you're going to see is those lasers are going to be crossing the room, and you need to know that the light that you see is the origin of the laser, and you need to know where that laser is originating so you can place yourself on the other side to protect yourself from it. So what's going to happen as you take down the boss, a laser eventually will cross the board and he will generate a shield around himself, which one, you should control the boss in the middle of the arena for this reason, to maximize the amount of time that you have from a laser spawning to you being able to get away from it, because you don't know exactly which wall that laser is going to originate from. So he's going to create this shield, and now we see a laser. Okay, I know that the laser is originating from the other side because that's where the red light is. Okay, that's very important. So then you position yourself on the other side of that sphere, and then you are protected from that laser. Now that laser will kill you in one shot. You may get lucky and be able to roll dodge through it if you're being being healed simultaneously, but it's going to one-shot anybody, one-shot the tank. If you're kind of walking into that laser, it will kill you. The Vault Protector himself doesn't really have too many attacks that you need to worry about. The ads on the board are also something you need to be aware of. The Dwarven Spiders, they're not going to cause a lot of direct damage, but when you kill them, they will do it like a little explosive AoE, so that's something you need to be aware of. Also, the spheres that spawn in, they can actually cause a pretty heavy shock damage attack. So basically, in regards to those two types of ads, what you want to do is pull them to the boss as quickly as possible and take them out, because they don't stop coming. You know, you want to take out those ads. You can get overwhelmed by ads in this fight if you're not doing crowd control and taking care of them throughout the fight. Okay, so that's really, really important. The other thing that you're going to see spawn in are these essentially little shock balls that kind of roll across the floor. And you can't kill those, but if you run into them, they will just explode for shock damage, do a decent amount of shock damage, but more importantly, they'll snare you. And if they snare you and you can't move, then you can't position yourself in safety from the laser. So if you get hit by those, most of the time you're going to be in a situation where you're going to end up getting killed by the laser before you're able to move again. So be aware of those and stay away from those. They are no bueno. And then as you progress further and further into the fight, you know, it's not just one laser now, it's usually all four. So you're going to see that here. Okay, we see the laser, we're communicating where we need to go. Okay, it's at the door, position on the other side. Now you can see the laser originating, which was on our right, so we're moving clockwise. It's really nice when it's just a nice clock, right? The laser's on the other side, boom, clockwise rotation, and we clockwise rotation again, and we're done. Okay, we've survived that, and there's 4 lasers that we get through, and then, you know, he comes out of it and we can execute. So that's kind of a difficult fight. I know that was a lot of information condensed in a short amount of time. Feel free to rewind it and kind of listen to what I'm saying as I'm showing it to you, because that fight can be a little bit tricky. It took us a while to kind of figure it out when we were playing through it. You know, this is our first playthrough, so it was a little tricky, but fun nonetheless. So as we're progressing on, let's talk, you know, the last bit about the lore of this dungeon again, which is pretty cool. I really like the lore of both of these dungeons. So again, you know, as we were exploring this dungeon, we get to a locked door that is seemingly locked from the inside, and that's kind of part of the quest as you're going. And with Thara's guidance, we assist her in utilizing a cannon of a destroyed Dwemer Delver tank to actually blast through the wielded door, which is kind of a cool little scene as you're playing through the dungeon. It's pretty cool. And then after defeating the Dwemer constructs left inside the deepest parts of the rune, we obtain the second half of the Wrathstone, you know, the final boss battle. And Thara thanks us and states she'll mention us to the Imperial who sent her, who's actually Abner Tharn. So we can assume that this is actually going to lead us towards the Elsevier Prelude quest, which will be released soon, and into the Season of Dragons. So pretty cool lore between these two dungeons. You know, it's pretty interesting how they connected into the Wrathstone story. So I really enjoyed that. So let's get banging on through these last few sets of ads, and we'll see you at the next boss. Alright, so next up is Rizzuk Bonechill and her little buddy Avalanche. You don't need to focus on Avalanche's DPS because once you kill Rizzuk, the fight will end. And also keep in mind, I'll show you right here, if the fight starts and someone is too far behind, they will instantly die, okay? Want to show you that because if everyone's not close, there will be a line that you cannot cross. You have to stay in the arena area, and if you are not in that area, you will instantly die. So what you want to do is basically have the tank Avalanche. Just pull aggro of Avalanche, and then your healer, you know, if they rock a Frost Staff, can pull Rizzuk's aggro and just hold on to her. And one thing that she's going to do is she's say, you know, I'm chilling the area, and that's going to put a small AoE around every player's feet that you just saw there. And once that explodes, everyone will freeze for a second and take a little bit of damage, and that's not going to cause you really any trouble so long as you're not overlapping those circles. As long as people are not overlapping their AoEs, it's not going to cause enough damage to kill you. So everybody else is just focusing on Rizzuk, and it's actually pretty easy. Avalanche does an attack that the tank needs to be aware of. See, I'm overlapping here. I think I die. You see, I was overlapping 2 circles, and that's going to kill me. The Avalanche will create an AoE on the ground that has ice spikes in it. You know, counterintuitively think that you need to exit that, but as the tank, you need to stay in that, or it will kill you. There's also a small ice ball that's kind of rolling around the fight. Doesn't really cause any direct damage. Nothing you really need to worry about, but if you get hit by that, it'll explode for some damage. So you can block it if you see it getting close to you. Another thing that she'll do is she'll channel frost energy and start shooting frost shots at everybody. If you see her teleport and start doing that, you need to interrupt that. If you don't interrupt that, it's probably going to kill you pretty quickly. So again, not too bad of a fight, honestly. You know, we cleaned it up pretty quickly. So let's move on. We're going to clean up some ads here, and we'll be right into the final boss.
Disabling is too complex to speed on your own. You'll need to operate the manual. I'll guide you through it. There, use the responsibility to absorb energy and charge it up. Something's right. This is selected.
I've never seen anything like it. Hold it off! I'll think of something.
Alright, so here we go. We're on to the final boss of this dungeon, the Stonekeeper. This one, again, isn't really too bad on just the veteran difficulty. Again, this isn't hard mode. We'll get the hard mode video up soon. So let's talk about a lot of the things that can happen here. First off, he's going to have a large fire attack that he shoots in front of him. So basically, you want the tank to hold on to that. And then all the other players, you either want to stay to the side or to the back of him. And tank's basically just going to face all that damage. You see that large area of fire damage that's coming at the tank, as well as him just shooting a small fire attack onto the tank as well. So the healer really needs to be paying attention to keep the tank healed through that, because he's going to be taking quite a bit of damage during these portions of the fight. And what you need to do is you need to take out his arms, okay? And he has 2 different arms, and basically you take them out, and until you take his arms out, he's invincible. And when you take out an arm, a Dwarven Centurion will spawn every single time. So we like to take an arm out and immediately focus on taking out the Centurion, right? You don't want to mess with taking both out and having 2 Centurions on the board. Dealing with that is just not even something you want to think about. So do your tank a favor, take out an arm, take out the Centurion. The arms themselves, what one of them does is essentially a little spinny attack. It's a rotary blades, and then the other arm just has a flame attack that shoots flame shots out at the tank. So Once you take both of those out, then he is damageable. And this phase is going to go on until about 55%. And when you enter this phase, he's going to start shooting flames out of where his arms were, as you see here. And he kind of spins around in a circle. And take your time here. It's nothing to rush through. You've got plenty of time. Once you take the Dwarven Centuria out, make sure everybody's up. You know, there's not really much that's going to hurt you. He's got that flame shot on the tank again. But again, you know, you can pick everybody up. You certainly have a lot of time to recover here, as you're seeing right here. But with that said, those flame attacks will kill you very, very fast that are spinning around. So you want to be able to kind of rotate with those as those flame attacks are happening. And then also you're seeing those kind of little dwarven spheres pop up that we saw in a few fights ago that do essentially the same thing. If you run into those, not only will it explode for some shock damage, but it's going to stun you. And if it stuns you, you're going to be locked into position for a minute. You're going to be CC'd, and you're likely going to be killed by the fire from the flame of the Stonekeeper as he's spinning around. So you want to pay attention to avoid those. But again, you know, we got a little ugly here, right? We always keeping it trashy a little bit. You know, we went down to one player at one point, but again, what I'm showing you here is you really have a lot of time to recover in this phase. So don't panic. You can recover pretty easily, and then once you get everybody back on their feet, then you can focus on taking the boss down. And this phase again is going to happen until he's at 55%. Now there's also going to be some dwarven spiders that spawn in, but again, they're not really going to cause too much damage. You don't need to focus on them too much. Just make sure everybody's up, and then let's take them down to 55%. And at 55%, we're going to enter the next phase of the fight, which is the Skeeveton phase. And once we get to that, we'll talk about how we handle that situation. Alright, so after 55%, you need to go down, and you'll all become Skeevetons. And basically you have to charge up with your X on that center ability, and it's easy to just essentially whatever direction you started on, turn straight around and follow those paths to essentially a shock conveyor, and then you use your ultimate on the shock conveyor. And once all players deactivate their or disable their shock conveyor, you will go back up to fight the boss for the next portion of the fight. Now you can die as a Skeeveton, you know, by those spinning blades or some fire traps down here, so be careful. I like to just go back and charge up if I've finished mine and another one hasn't finished, just in case someone dies. So keep that in mind. But once everybody disables it, boom, you're back to fighting the Stonekeeper, and now he's got his arms back. The main difference here is now you have these spinning blades going around the platform, similar to the blades that are seen in Maelstrom Arena, and they can certainly cause a lot of damage, so you certainly want to be aware of that. But again, if you have a healer and you're not just walking in the blade like a moron, you know, you're probably not going to have to truly worry about that too much. But it's the same strategy other than that, right? We're going to take off an arm, and then we're going to take down the Dwarven Centurion, and we're going to move to the next arm, and it's essentially the same as before, the only difference being that now we have a spinning blade to deal with. So other than that, you know, it's not too bad. So really, it's not too bad of a fight. I don't think, you know, as a DLC dungeon, I didn't particularly find this dungeon too difficult. So we'll just go ahead and clean this up. We'll take off his last arm, kill the Centurion, and then we're going to essentially kill the Stonekeeper. And then after we do that, we'll talk a little bit about the rewards you get from this dungeon, and as well as the monster set. So let's go ahead and wipe up this little dude. Again, keeping it trashy, don't do this, right? My food just ran out mid-fight. Always eat food prior to the start of a dungeon. You know, you don't want your food to be running out right in the middle of a dungeon, you know, like a scrub. Stonekeeper is down with a colossal collapse. So, with the quest, you'll go get the second half of the Wrathstone. Again, if you enjoyed the lore aspect of these dungeons, feel free to talk to us about it in the comments. We'll certainly reply. So let's check out some of the stuff that we get for completing this. The first thing that you get is a dwarven ice pet, an icebound dwarven spider, which actually looks really cool. I'll show it to you right here. I think it looks pretty cool. It's got some ice on the dwarven parts of the spider. I think that looks pretty dope. Alright, so let's check out the monster set that comes out of this dungeon, which is the Stonekeeper set. This is a really good tank set. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of tanks use this set. The first part of this set is going to give you additional stamina, magicka, and health, basically a tri-plus. And then the second portion of the set is basically going to give you stacks of charge whenever you block an attack, up to 1 stack per second. And when you gain 6 stacks, you're going to release the energy, restoring 5,000 stamina and magicka and healing for 5,370 damage. Essentially a tripod. It's pretty awesome. It does have a longer, regeneration. It can only happen once every 14 seconds, but very, very, very good tank set. I think a lot of tanks are going to start using this set, so I think it's really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you find it helpful, feel free to like and subscribe. Check out our other Elder Scrolls content. You can check out the other Wrathstone dungeon here on the bottom left of your screen, and we hope to see you out in Elder Scrolls.